Hi, welcome to this video on Visual Studio Code 1.106, which was released in November 2025. I'll show you new features and explain how to use them. Enjoy! The Agent Sessions view helps you keep an overview of all of the agent sessions that are running. It is included in the GitHub Copilot chat extension, and you can open it here at the left from the tab bar. And if I click it, I can see three different chat lists. The first one is a chat that I have set up with my local chat agent. So if I choose agent mode right here in Copilot chat and I start a session, it will appear here, and I will also have the history available here. Then below that is the GitHub Copilot Cloud agent, in other words, the coding agent. These are agent sessions that run asynchronously on the GitHub platform using GitHub Actions. These sessions are available as well. I can click them from here, and this has been available already for some time. And then if you have the Copilot CLI installed, the new one that was recently released, you will see sessions that were started there as well. What we can do is, right now you can see that this bar is a separate bar, separate from the chat window that is here on the right hand side. This agent sessions view is now enabled by default, so that's the first change. And one of the other changes is that we can now click manage and then settings. And if I search for this setting chat.agent sessions view location, you can switch between disabled and view is the current view. Disabled would be that it's completely hidden, but we can also choose for single view. And if I choose single view and I make some room here, you will see that my chat window has a new tab here, which is called Agent Sessions. And it will display all of the agent sessions that we saw before at the left-hand side, now on the right-hand side, as one single view. Keep in mind that this feature is relatively new, so not all features are available yet at this moment. This list can get pretty long. What you can now do is you can highlight the window by clicking somewhere in an open space and then pressing Ctrl-Alt-F on your keyboard, and now you can find agent sessions by typing in any search pattern. With plan mode in Visual Studio Code, you have a companion that helps you planning out a new feature or planning on refactoring, planning on fixing a bug. The great thing about this plan mode that is available here at the bottom from the mode menu. So before we had the agent ask and edit, and plan is new here. When we select that, we have a different mode where Copilot cannot make changes to your files, but it will only verify your files to see how it can plan out the request that you did. So I have one prepared. I would like to be able to add an engine sound to the plane. We have here a web API project that is about planes and airfields. And engine sound is not there yet. So I'm asking Copilot in plan mode on how to approach this. And while plan mode is working, I can explain you that this is actually what chat modes used to be before, but on steroids. So there is more that it can do. I currently use the GPT 4.1 model, so it's a little bit limited in what it did. It's created a plan and some steps on how to implement and any further considerations. So now I get two additional buttons here. And the start implementation button does something pretty simple. It switches to agent mode and pastes the start implementation text here. And if I go back, I remove this and I go back to plan mode, I get the button again. There's another option which I like a lot more, and that is open in editor. And when I click that, it immediately executes another prompt which allows GitHub Copilot to create a markdown file from the plan that it made. And the great thing about having this this plan in a markdown file is that you can refer to it in any subsequent agent sessions. So there's no need to keep one conversation active constantly because it has the context of the plan. No, you can refer to this plan markdown file, and that will certainly help in outcomes. So this is an important feature. And of course, these kind of features, these buttons that you saw, you can implement them yourself as well. So let's take a look at the example that we have here of plan mode, because you can look actually behind the curtains to see what is happening. I can click the cog here and then select custom agents. And what I can now do is I can select plan. And this will show me the code, or actually the markdown that is behind the plan agent. And as you can see, there is some new stuff going on. If you have been working before with custom chat modes, you will recognize some of the stuff that you see here, like the name, description used to be there, the tools used to be there. But what is new and what is very important here is handoffs. And handoffs enable you to hand the work off to another agent, to another custom agent file, to do the work with different instructions. So this one is the planning agent, and there are two handoffs available. They both go to the agent called agent, which is the default agent mode. Here's the other one. And this is the prompt it will provide. And as you can see in the second case, send is set to true. And that means that it will immediately execute the prompt. And in the first case, it doesn't. It just pastes the prompt and doesn't do anything else. So it's interesting to see what is defined here. Take a look for yourself in this plan agent configuration and learn from it, because I did so as well and I learned a thing or two. So yeah, plan mode, always important to start with planning when using Copilot, when using GitHub Copilot. To work out your plan and verify if the model does any assumptions that you don't like or that you do like. You can change the plan, etc. So this really helps. The coding agent integration in VS Code has moved from the pull request extension into the GitHub Copilot extension. So the pull request extension is the one you see here on the side. It's a separate extension from the GitHub Copilot extension. And the GitHub Copilot extension is this one, or actually the GitHub Copilot chat extension. What else changed due to this is if you now go to your browser and in a GitHub repository, like here, you have been working with a coding agent and you have coding agent sessions. You can open the coding agents panel now and then open a coding agent session. And from there you can now click code and then open in VS Code, and that would allow me to open up this session specifically in VS Code. So as you can see, it's asking me if I would like to allow this. And when I click open, you will see that the session that we had open in the browser will now open here in VS Code. Sometimes it can take a little while. As you can see, it's loading, it's appearing. So you can continue your work here. It doesn't matter anymore in which place you're working on these coding agent sessions. If you have not been using the Copilot CLI so far, I suggest you take a look. It is recently released. It's still in preview, but it's a great way to interact with Copilot just from your keyboard. Keep in mind that you can also call the Copilot CLI with an additional parameter enabling you to automate certain scenarios as part of a script with Copilot. So this is the page where you can install it. It's installed through npm, and this is what it looks like when you start it up. You just start it up by going to the directory where you want to work, and then type in Copilot, and then you get a possibility to enter requests like add the length property to the plane model. So let's see what it does. And as you can see, it looks actually more or less the same as the chat mode in Visual Studio Code, but still it's a little bit different because it's just a CLI. So it's currently busy implementing some stuff. It's making changes to my files. So in the meanwhile, I will switch to Visual Studio Code, and I'll show you what you can do there. So we have seen the agent sessions view before, and I already told you that you have the GitHub Copilot CLI agent available here. So we can see the session that we are running in the CLI also here in VS Code. I just clicked it, and what I can now even do is I can start typing here and continue my session in VS Code. This is still a CLI session, and you can tell by, for example, the fact that we only have 4 models available here. Because the amount of models available in the CLI is limited, they are limited here as well. So keep that in mind. Another thing you can do from here, from the agent sessions, is you can start a new GitHub Copilot CLI agent. So that would create a new session here, just like the one we saw before. It's the visual session, and you can also click the arrow down just next to the plus button, and then select new agent session in terminal, and then an integrated terminal is started, and you just get the Copilot CLI right in your terminal. So yet another way to be able to make changes to your code and work together with GitHub Copilot. So yeah, that's a lot of new features around this CLI agent. And continuing here in the agent sessions view, there's more that we can do. We just added the length property to a plane that just updated the model, but of course it requires way more changes. I used the Haiku model for that, the Claude Haiku model, and the Claude Haiku model is pretty concise in its work. So, but let's stick to Haiku. That sounds good to me. And I'll continue here. And what I can do here is /delegate, and this will delegate this session to the coding agent on github.com, making it asynchronous. So my question here would be implement this feature in the controller as well. Let's keep it simple. So this means that the Copilot coding agent now picks up the work. This can take some time, but let me quickly, oh, there we go. Uncommitted changes detected. That sounds good. Let's proceed. It will commit them in a separate branch and then start the coding agent in that branch to work on my feature. So I'll open up a browser now, and that browser contains the link to my agent sessions in my repository. And as you can see, just a new agent session appeared, and this is a session that we just created. It is spinning up a dev environment. Might take a little while to get things set up, and then it will start the implementation of my request. The fact that I chose Haiku now doesn't really matter, because now the coding agent takes over, and the coding agent uses whichever model it deems necessary for the requirement. In terms of premium requests, don't worry, a coding agent session only costs 1 premium request. So there we go. There's a Playwright MCP server and a GitHub MCP server available, and now it will start implementation. Because the implementation will take a little while, I will not show you the end result, but I guess that you get what you can do here, and that's the most important thing, is handing off, delegating your work to the coding agent right from the CLI or the CLI inside of VS Code. In the chat sessions view, you can now also see how many changes Copilot has made. So let's take a look at what happens here. I have 2 sessions running, so or 1 session running and 2 completed. So you can see here that my current session that is running has no changes yet, but the other session right here has already more than 2,500 lines of code changed. So you can keep track of how much the code churn is per agent session. And of course, you can click the agent session, open it up, and see in detail what is happening there. If you have been using chat modes previously, that changed. It was renamed to agents, custom agents. So before you could choose chat modes here. Now there's custom agents. So if you have chat modes, just like me here in the .github folder and then the chat modes folder, I have a general chat mode. You will see the squiggly line here, and if I hover over this, it will tell you, hey, chat modes have been renamed to agents. Please move this file to, and then to the agents, and it will change the name. You can use a fix from Copilot, and it will suggest inline some script to move it and to rename it. Keep in mind that it will still work here in VS Code, but it will not work, for example, in case of the coding agent, because it can work for the coding agent, it can work for the CLI, but only if it's a custom agent. So let's create a custom agent mode, and we can do that at least in two ways. One is here, configure custom agents, which will pop up this drop down. And here from the little cog menu, we can click custom agents. We get the same. Let's create a new agent and call that the architect agent. We need to confirm the directory where we want to store it, whether it be local, then it's only available to me, or in .github/agents folder, and then it will become available if I commit this directory and file to my repository. It will become available to all collaborators on that repository. So let's do that. Call it architect, and it opens up a new file. As you can see, it called it architect.agent.md, and it put it in a directory agents under the .github folder. Now, let me paste in the mode that I have prepared for you. There's some stuff going on, some stuff you might already know from using custom chat modes, so it's very, very similar, but because you can use it in the coding agent, there is something important that you should know. In this case, this architecture agent, I only want it to read code. I don't want it to make changes to existing files, etc. So what I needed to do, because the tools I selected were all of the read tools, including search. And when you use search, it uses the code index of your repository. But apparently, coding agent doesn't do that or prefer that. So you need to use a tool that is not known in Visual Studio Code, which is Bash. And if you enable Bash, the coding agent will use that to read files and to list files, etc. So that is an important thing that you need to know, because I have not seen that documented anywhere. So that's an important thing. So let's take a look now, because we created the architect mode. So what does it look like? Well, it's very simple. We expand the menu with the chat modes, and we can choose architect. And from now on, it will adhere to any instructions that we provided in this file. So I can now ask it, for example, take a look at hash program.cs, let's see, and come up with the most important improvement. All right. So, and in the architect mode, I told it adhere to general architectural principles like solid, etc., and do some checks. So here it came up with some improvement, which is to implement the iHealth check interface, which is not implemented currently in our file. Now, if I start my my CLI, then I'll show you that you can use this very same agent mode in the same direct or in the same project. There we go. So I start Copilot, which is the Copilot CLI, and now I can / command, and then I can choose an agent /agent. And as you can see, the architect agent appears, but the janitor, that is a chat mode, doesn't appear. So it really needs to be a custom agent. Now I select architect, and now I have my architect mode available, and I can ask the same question like, what top one improvement can you suggest for our program.cs? So, and now again, it will use this custom agent to answer the question. And it's here I can't refer to a specific file, so it needs to find the file. But again, here it suggested a health check as an improvement. So as you can see, you can use this here as well. Now let's move to the browser and show you what happens there. So if I would start a new agent or a new agent session, I can select a custom agent here, and if I click it, you will see that it has no custom agents. And the reason for that is that I'm in the wrong repository. So if I move to Brothers demo, then, and of course, normally you would need to commit this agents.md file or the agent.md file to your repository, but I already did before. Removed it and put it back again. So as you can see, we have it available here as well, and I can start an agent session specifically with this custom agent on github.com. But again, you will need to select the repository where this one is in. And the file needs to be there, of course, the custom agent mode. When creating custom agents, there is another setting that you can make to indicate whether that file is available to either specifically VS Code or CLI/coding agent. And you can do so by typing in target colon, and then as you can see, there are two choices: GitHub Copilot, which means either CLI or coding agent on github.com, or VS Code. And irrespective what you choose here, what you put in your file, your agent will still work on all platforms. All of these platforms will ignore properties which are not applicable to that specific platform. The only thing is, what really helps here is that, for example, if I select VS Code, I get completions here for Visual Studio Code specific properties. Amongst these are, for example, argument hint. Let's see, hint. That's one, and as you can see, it comes up with a hint, something that it will recognize from your prompt to determine what it needs to do. Another one specifically for VS Code is model, because model will not work for coding agent because it will automatically select a model. So you can choose Auto or any of the models that you have available. Another property that is available for VS Code is an important one, which is handoffs. And what you can do is you can hand off, and I can tab to get an example. I can hand off to another agent, and I explained this before, but you can hand off to another agent and provide a prompt and then indicate whether the prompt is actually sent or it's just put in place. It's switching to that agent and not sending that prompt, leaving it up to the user to send that prompt or not. And of course, these handoffs are only usable in the VS Code setting here in the VS Code target. If I choose for GitHub Copilot, I get some different ones. So of course, name description is there, tools is there, but you also get MCP servers. So you can provide a list of MCP servers which you want to make available to the coding agent. So that's one. this one and the tools which are available is a different set from the tools that are available in VS Code. So what I can select here, and the funny thing is I don't get any option to select the tools from a list, so I'll need to, type them myself. But what you can choose here is edit, search. There is shell. Oops. There is shell. And the last one is custom-agent. So these are the options that you have to, and of course the tools from the MCP servers that you have selected, but this is where you can choose from. So keep that in mind. Any other tools are not available in the coding agent, and it will of course ignore those tools. As you might know, GitHub Copilot consists of two different extensions, the GitHub Copilot extension and the GitHub Copilot Chat extension. The GitHub Copilot Chat extension was recently open sourced, making it available to everybody to look behind the scenes what happens, how it is built, and to be able to use it for or to improve it. That would be, of course, the greatest addition if you can contribute to that extension. But you can also take a look at it to explain how different things are working behind the scenes. The GitHub Copilot extension was separate and no open source. What now happened is that the code from the GitHub Copilot extension is integrated in the open source repository of GitHub Copilot Chat. And by early 2026, the GitHub Copilot extension will be deprecated. So by default now, the GitHub Copilot extension is still used, but what you can do if you want to experiment with the new way of working, you can go to settings and you can go to the chat.extensionunification.enabled. And if you switch this on, you will get the GitHub Copilot extension that is responsible for inline completions. You will get that feature, that functionality from the GitHub Copilot Chat extension, so the new experience. So this is still experimental. I expect it to be the default somewhere in the upcoming months, so that the old GitHub Copilot extension can be deprecated and there is only one extension that will remain, meaning that the inline completion has become open source now as well. I just added new property here called wingspan, and in Planes Controller I want to add it here as well. I want to add it to the fixed data set that we have. So I'm adding here the wingspan property once, and I'm clicking here, and I don't want to do it twice, but I still get a suggestion here that annoys me. So Copilot now allows me to snooze these suggestions, so I don't get them and I can program without being disturbed here. So that's another way of snoozing GitHub Copilot inline completions. This is specifically for next edit suggestions, and of course using the Copilot menu that is currently hidden, so I'll need to zoom out a little bit. You can also snooze the full suggestions for an amount of minutes. So these are the two places to snooze these. GitHub Copilot models are trained up until a certain date. If you want to bring in additional information that was set up after the model's cutoff date, you can provide that by the means of putting the information in a file and providing that file's context, or you can provide the URL to the web page that you want to feed as context. You then need to use the hash variable, the hash fetch variable, to indicate to Copilot that it should retrieve that web page. Normally it would ask before it would retrieve that web page, and what it now does is then, if you approve that, it retrieves that web page, and first shows you what information it will ingest to prevent any prompt injection from happening, because that can happen if a page contains some prompt somewhere. It can trigger Copilot to do stuff that you don't want it to. So always verify what information comes in. I do have a little example here. I'm going to retrieve the metrics from the previous day, the GitHub Copilot metrics, using the REST API in C#. And what I do here is I provide the URL to the documentation, and I provide the hash fetch variable. And if I do this, GitHub Copilot, as you can see, it's using the tool fetch. You could just see that right here at the top. And then I need to approve the tool result. So it did fetch from the URL, and then here it provides the output. So I can verify if that's okay. And then I can scroll down and allow it to use that in its output. So it's a type of retrieval augmented generation that happens here. So it uses this to improve its prompt, and now it comes up with a suggestion on how to approach this and how to implement this. Allowing MCP tools to be used without your consent can be configured now in a central way. Let me first show you what the default experience used to be before this feature was introduced. So what I'm going to do is list all of the issues in the repository. Open issues, give me all open issues in this repository. And this should fire the GitHub Copilot MCP server, and as you can see, it did so. So it ran the list of issues, and this is a tool that is fired without any consent by default. So it found 2 issues, and if I would now want to edit or add a comment to one of these issues, so that's the prompt I have here. I'm adding a comment to the first issue that it's mentioning. It would ask me for approval, right? So what you can see here is it will send this body to the GitHub API using the MCP server, and I can click allow here. That will only allow it once. I have some more options here, like the ones that you know from before maybe, which is allow in this session, allow in this workspace, or always allow. But there's more you can do. I'm gonna skip it for now, and I'm going to my command bar, and there is an option chat manage tool approval, and that will open up a drop-down dialog containing all of my MCP servers and the fetch web page tool, which you can see right here. And what I can configure is, in this case, we want to add a comment to an issue. I can select it here, so you can see there is now one tool selected for auto approval. I click OK, and now I select, I create a new chat. So again, list all issues in my repository and maybe only the open issues. There we go. It will retrieve the issues again, and then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to make a change to the first issue on centralized error handling, and it should add that comment without any approval. So as you can see, it ran the add comment to issue, and it didn't ask me for approval. So this provides a central way of managing these approvals. And still you can individually allow, if you prefer, you just leave it unselected in that list. So it's managed on an individual basis. It's completely up to you. What is also available from this configuration is when I expand, for example, not GitHub MCP server, but the Playwright MCP server, you can see that there are some additional expand buttons. For example, for click, And what you can see is there are two options here, without approval and without reviewing result. So the approval is the before approval, before it starts executing the tool, and without reviewing the results is after. So when it did the click and the result, whether that will be shared with the GitHub Copilot agent. And maybe it's more logical if I show you the fetch web page. So without approval, it will not even retrieve the web page. Or sorry, if you select without approval, it will retrieve the web page without your intermediate approval. And if you select without reviewing results, it will ingest the contents of that web page automatically without your approval. So if you have them switched both off, like I have right now, it will ask 2 times. First to retrieve the web page and the second time to ingest it and use it as additional context to the question that you asked it. As you know, in agent mode, GitHub Copilot can use a terminal to execute certain commands. And for all of these commands, you would need to allow them. And there are several ways of allowing certain commands to be executed without approval. So let's show you what this looks like. So I want Copilot to create a new file using PowerShell and use redirection to achieve this. And the way Copilot is detecting what kind of commands you're running and whether it's allowed to run it without approval or not has been very simple so far. Before, they have been using an algorithm that would just do splitting on pipings or ampersands to find out the different commands that would be in one line. And now they implemented a parser, a true parser, to find out which commands were running. And that's a little bit hard to show you. What I can show you though is what this resulted in as well. And as you can see, it now detected I'm doing a write file operation as part of my command prompt. So it's actually alerting me that somewhere there's a hidden file operation other than reading files going on, which might pose a certain risk. And I expect much more from the fact that there is now a real parser allowing for a way more thorough checks of the commands that GitHub Copilot is running in your terminal. Sometimes when working in a terminal, it's useful to attach the output of the terminal to the chat. And before, what you could do is you could use the hash terminal last command, and that would provide Copilot access to the command that you gave and the output of the command. Now that became way easier. If we, for example, run .NET test in the wrong directory, that of course fails, I can click this button here right in front of the command that I provided, and now I can click attach to chat. And this would do more or less the same thing. So now I can ask Copilot what went wrong here and how to fix it. So it gives Copilot now access to the answer and the question or the command that I gave, allowing it to help me with with my problem. And as you can see, it detected I ran it in the wrong directory. So I can either run it based on the solution, or I can run it based on the project file. And of course, I can now insert it from here and then enter, and that should allow the test to run. So summarizing, use this really nice feature to include information from your terminal, allowing Copilot to have additional context to solve your problem. When Copilot runs something in the terminal, a terminal generally appears, and sometimes after a while you get a lot of terminals cluttering your view, whereas you might want to see the files that you're working on instead. what you can do is you can change a setting now, which is this one, chat.tools.terminal.output location. By default, it's set to terminal, meaning you will see the output right here at the bottom in your terminal. You can switch to none, and that means that Copilot will not open up the terminal window here. So let's see how that looks like. I'm going to ask Copilot to write a new file to get the directory contents from our project using PowerShell. So it should use PowerShell on the background in a terminal, but it's not going to show it. So let me go ahead and enter this prompt. And yeah, it will ask me, for example, of course, to run it. So I'll allow it to run. But as you can see, no terminal appears here on the bottom of my screen, and it outputs the information. I can still see the output by clicking the expand button here, and this is really the output of the command. I can also still open the terminal. So I click here, show terminal, and as you can see, it opens up the terminal with the command. The funny thing is, when I kill this terminal, the button to open the terminal, of course, will disappear. So that's something to keep in mind. But this will keep your view a little bit less cluttered, and you can focus more on the interaction that you have with GitHub Copilot, and maybe any files that you have open on the left-hand side. In the meanwhile, I reset my environment, and there's another feature that I would like to show you regarding this. So my terminal setting is still the same. It's set to none, meaning any terminals created by GitHub Copilot will not appear. But now I have my terminal open. So what would happen now if I would ask the very same question? So we're using PowerShell to find out which files and directories we have available in the root of our project. And there we go. I need to allow it to run. But as you will see, this terminal will not appear in the list of terminals. But at the bottom, we do have one hidden terminal. So that's where you can find it, and you can click it, and then of course you can go to that terminal. Will open it up, and you can still show it. So it will not show up even though you have your terminal window open, leaving your environment uncluttered. Reusing prompts is something that is really useful. If you want to share a good prompt with your team, what you could already do is in the .github folder /prompts, you could put some prompt file .prompt.md and commit it to the repository. It will be available for your teammates, and you can access it by typing / and then the name of the file. What you could also do is use the /save command to save such a prompt. Well, that experience has improved now. So if I type /save prompt and enter, a new workflow will kick off. It's actually just a prompt sent to GitHub Copilot. It generates a nice prompt file that I can reuse. So I can click keep to keep it. And now, of course, I need to save it. And I do save as, and I go into my repository in Write Brothers demo, and then the .github folder, and I need to create a new folder called prompts. I go inside there and I save it. And now I have this prompt available, so I can just type / refactor for performance, and there it is. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of help to discover which prompt files are available. As you may have seen before, you can store ready-made prompts in the .github folder in the subfolder called prompts. and these might be not so discoverable. So what you can do is inside of your settings, let me go to my settings here, and you will need to edit this in the JSON view of your settings. You can have a chat.prompt files recommendations section, and what this does is it points to a prompt file here. In this case, I have a verify unit tests prompt file. You can see it right here, and this is set to true. And that means that we get a recommendation right here. It's a button when you open up a new chat that, if clicked, would insert the verify unit tests prompt. And you can, of course, add something to it, press enter, and then it will execute the prompt that is stored in the markdown file. Now, what they added to facilitate the an easy way of editing these files, you can now right-click and then click Edit Prompt File, and it opens up the prompt file right in your editor, allowing you to make changes and store them. And of course, you want to do a PR if there's any changes in the prompt file, so your fellow teammates are aware of this change. Let's ask agent mode to do a file change. When it does a file change, normally it would open all of the files that it's changing. And sometimes it can be a whole lot of files. And maybe you're looking at a different file meanwhile, and it's cluttering your complete editor. As you can see, it now made a change to a file, but it didn't open it. And of course, we can open it by clicking on the change it did and close it again, but it will not open it by default. Let's undo this, and now I'll show you a setting that will allow you to still open the files if you like that behavior. So the setting is called accessibility.openChatEditedFiles. And if I enable this setting, then you will see that the files will be opened again. So I'll start a new chat here and ask the same again. And now it should, of course, open up the file. First discover what it needs to do, of course, but as you can see now, it opens up the file. So it's very much a personal preference whether you want the files to be opened or not. Keep in mind, you can always still go to your file explorer, and these little icons, the square with the dot inside of it, will indicate where the change has been made. And even if you collapse your entire directory structure, you can still see where the change was made by drilling down directory by directory until you find the file that was changed, which is in this case the plain.cs. So yeah, again, matter of personal preference, whether you want the files to be opened automatically or not. In the previous version of Visual Studio Code, the thinking style display was already introduced, and it was only introduced for GPT-5 codecs. So if you selected that model, you would be able to see some thinking that Copilot was doing on the background. Now it is enabled for other models as well, not all models, but it is enabled for GPT-5, GPT-5 Mini, and Gemini 2.5 Pro. So let's take a look. I selected the GPT-5 model here, and the way this thinking is displayed can be changed in the settings. So let's go to the settings and search for chat.agent.thinking. And if you filter like this, you will see two important settings. One is is about the tools that the agent is using while thinking. You can set it to read only, so it would only show the read-only tool calls that are done, or all or none. So that's one thing you can set. The other thing is the thinking style. So how the thinking is displayed in the chat, in the streaming chat. And it's a little bit hard to demo this because sometimes there's a lot of thinking going on, and the other time you use the same prompt, there's just a little bit of thinking going on. So it's a little bit of a guess if this will work. But in fixed scrolling, it will have a fixed square inside of the chat where the thinking will scroll. Collapsed preview will show the thinking while it's going on and then collapse it when it's done and continue with other steps. And collapsed will not show thinking by default, but of course you can expand to show the thinking. So let's see if we can make this work. Let's select fixed scrolling. I'm going to ask Copilot a very simple question to add the engine sound property to a file. And let's see what happens. Of course, it always needs a little bit of time to get started, but then this is it. I hope that you saw it. If not, watch back in the video. You saw a square where the thinking was scrolling, right? That was a box. All right. So let's undo the change and let's create a new chat conversation, and we're going to try again, and now switched from fixed scrolling to collapsed preview. I'm going to ask exactly the same question, and let's see what happens and if we can actually see it, because that's always the question. Yeah, as you can see now, it is scrolling in a box that grows until it's done, and then it collapses. So I can still expand this and take a look at the thinking that took place. And let me undo again. Yes. Let's create a new chat. And then we're going to switch to collapsed. And that should not show any thinking unless we expand the box where it is displayed. So another time with the same prompt, and let's see what happens. Again, it needs a little bit time for preparation. And there we go. As you can see, it's a collapsed box, and we can expand it to show the thinking. So that's 3 ways of showing the thinking that it does. Thinking does not appear for every prompt. So the funny thing is, this is a very simple prompt. Thinking appears. I've been experimenting with more complex prompt. It didn't do any thinking. So yeah, that makes demoing hard, but it's also for you to understand that thinking is not always included in every prompt that you ask. Inline chat that has been available for a while has had a revamp. There is a version 2 available. I must honestly say that I don't use it that much anymore. Actually, I haven't used it for the past few months, but I can imagine that there is quite a lot of people still using it. So this new V2 incarnation of this feature is set behind a setting that is available in Visual Studio Code. So if you filter your settings for inline chat.enable v2, you will see a setting here. I have already enabled it. So let me show you what it looks like. To open up the inline chat, you will need to press Ctrl-I on your keyboard. It will open up the inline chat, and you can ask direct questions on the file that you have open. It's very focused, and that's what it's great at, focusing on specific details. So for example, I can type some commands here like /doc and then enter, and it would inline document my file, as you can see. There are some more features like /explain, and they don't appear anymore, but they will still work. Keep in mind that this new version is really focused on a single prompt, so no iterations like it used to be, where you could iterate over the response. It's editing in a single file, although you can add some additional context, and it's only for code changes. So really focused on what you need inside of a code file. The chat view of GitHub Copilot Chat has had a small revamp. So to create a new chat, there has been added a drop-down, and you can create a new chat editor, and a new chat window. So when I clicked new chat editor, a complete editor would appear here with the same functionality as a regular chat. Then a new chat window will open up a new separate window. Let me drag that in here. There we go. So you can have it on a separate screen. That may be convenient for people using multiple screens. And there's of course a regular new chat. Because I'm already in a new chat, this wouldn't do anything. So that is new. They cleaned up the menu. So as you can see, there are some divisions here. Of course, custom chat modes was renamed to custom agents. So that's changed. Then at the bottom, the tools selector went from the right side to the left side, small change. And if you use math, like here in my case, I'm asking Copilot to explain a simple math algorithm. When Copilot renders math syntax, you can right click it and then copy math source. And then when I paste it, you can see the source that is used. And in one of the previous videos on previous versions of Visual Studio Code, I explained how Copilot can now render math expressions. So look back to find out what you need there. For this feature, I cannot really provide a demo. What has been in the news a lot is MCP servers. And of course, it's a very important feature. It allows GitHub Copilot and any other AI tool to connect to any API outside of its own context. And this is also a risk, of course, because MCP servers are just software like any other piece of software that can have vulnerabilities where authentication takes place. So it's about permissions. So in enterprise scenarios, you generally want to regulate to which MCP servers people have access. The beginning has now been made to enable this, but it's certainly not watertight. What you can do is in the GitHub organization or enterprise policies, you can set up a link to, or you can set up your own gallery, your MCP server gallery. That means that you can configure it in such a way that people can only use the MCP servers that are defined in that gallery. And a gallery can be as simple as a JSON file that is hosted somewhere. Of course, it needs to be accessible without authentication, because in the end, the IDE will just do a curl call to that URL. The other thing is, of course, you need to restrict the access and actually tell from the policies that users can only use MCP servers from that list. Keep in mind though, again, it's not watertight. So if you take a look at the documentation, and what you see here is the different IDEs that and their status, if they implement this policy or not. And if there is really a situation where there is allow list enforcement, because the first step is displaying the registry and motivating users to use only MCP servers of that registry. The second one is the allow list enforcement, and when that works, the user is not able to start any MCP server except for the ones that are on the allow list. And keep also in mind this little note here at the bottom that for Eclipse, JetBrains and Xcode, these features are only supported in the pre-release versions of Copilot. For VS Code, of course, it depends on the version. On the latest version, this is working. But if you have a user that is on 1.100 or 1.95 or an older version, this will not work. So keep that in mind while setting up this policy. And again, it's not watertight at all at the moment. The location where MCP servers are installed was not configurable actually before. You can either install an MCP server in your user directory, so it will be available in all projects that you open, or you can enable it as part of your project in your workspace. This was not very obvious, and what they created now, let me go to the marketplace and then filter for @MCP. If you filter for @MCP, it will show all MCP servers, and use here a random MCP server, mark it down. And as you can see, we have two buttons here. One is install and the other one is install in workspace. So let's click the install in workspace for now. And let me go to my workspace and show you what happened. So we have the .vs Code folder, and as you can see now a mcp.json file appeared. And if I click it, you can see that the market down MCP server was added to this file, meaning it is only available in my workspace. So when I open up this project and when I move to another project, this MCP server will not be available anymore. To give you a little bit more context on what it looks like when it's installed in my profile, I did install an MCP server in my profile, and that is the GitHub MCP server. And I can click the cog from here, and that will take me to the mcp.json where my GitHub MCP server is configured. Let me make a little bit more room. So there's two actually. I also have my Playwright MCP server installed in my profile. And as you can see from the path here, it's installed inside of my users directory in my roaming profile. So this is a situation where these two MCP servers will be available in all projects. And if you just want it in your own project, in a specific project, you configure it here. And for installation, you use the install in workspace, like here, install in workspace. That wraps it up for this time. It was quite a lot. I hope you liked it and hope to see you next time. Thanks.